my last video, I shared with you that I left Gillette, Wyoming early because the temps were forecasted to be in the upper 80s. Well, I made it to my campsite and the temps are much better. The difference is that I went up in elevation. Gillette's elevation is right around 4,500 and where I'm currently camped is about 8,500 feet in elevation. So woohoo! Cooler temperatures, not upper 90s. Also, I shared with you that it was my maiden voyage to see how I do camping on my own. Well, so yesterday was my launch date, I guess, so to speak. And I guess you could say it didn't go very well because I got stranded out in the middle of nowhere. But wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. First, I want to share with you that I had dinner with Robert Thursday night and he sent me off with a toast for good luck. Early the next morning, I gave Fancy Free a bath. I filled her up and we hit the road, Nonni and I. We stopped at a rest area, and as you can see, my poor baby girl is still yawning and sleepy. I started way early in the morning. I think I got up like at 4 or something obnoxious like that. I just love her. Anyway, a couple of hours later, I passed a sign for a wildlife habitat management area, and in my last Sticks and Bricks home, I was actually working on getting my backyard certification as a wildlife habitat, and I was that close. I only needed a few more species, so you know, and you know me, there is no way I was going to pass that up. So I did a U-turn and checked it out. I drove as far as I felt comfortable without knowing the area, though. I started seeing some ground that was uneven and everything, but it's quite lovely. And I made the decision that I would research it and come back there one day to camp. So I stopped and I took pictures of the signs, and then I climbed in the back of the van and I gave Nonni a treat and I checked her water. Everything was going fine until I walked around to the driver's side and I couldn't get in. Evidently, my keys had fallen out of my pocket somewhere inside the van without me realizing it. It honestly wasn't my fault this time. I can't tell you how many times I've locked my keys in my van or lost my purse. I've already shared that with you guys. But this time it wasn't my fault. They fell out of my pocket. But I am getting rid of that pair of capris and I won't wear those shallow pocket things anymore. Anyway, I couldn't believe it. So I waited there for quite a while, but no one came by. I mean, at all. And so I hiked down the road past the signs to see where it went and to see if I could see anyone else. The map indicated that there was fishing and camping ahead, but I didn't know how far I would need to go, and there was no way I was going to get that far away from the van because Nonni was locked inside. So after a short while, I headed back to the van, and she was okay. I had both ceiling fans going, thank God, and one was blowing in, and the other one was circulating air out. And there was plenty of shade for her in the rear of the van. I was so grateful for that. Plus, I had just given her water, and but it was coming up on noon, and I knew it was just going to keep getting hotter, and so I had my phone with me, but there was no service, absolutely no signal whatsoever. And I have my Spot GPS satellite device now where I can radio for help, and that includes roadside assistance. But guess where it was? On my dash, in the car, or in the van. What a mess, I'm telling you. I thought, oh my gosh, I've just totally messed up my maiden voyage, and my tribe is not going to let me ever camp by myself or drive by myself again. Then I remembered that there had been a Prius up the road that we had passed, and so I walked back toward the main road to see if they were still there, and the car was there, but no one was around. I stayed there for a little while, and I kept calling out, hello, hello, you know how you do when you're out. Anyway, finally I decided to head back to the van and my beloved Nonni. I needed to have eyes on her. And I was starting to get really worried when here comes a University of Wyoming truck. He was coming from the main road and heading in, but he was going fast enough that I thought he might pass me by. So I stepped in the middle of the road and flagged him down. There was no way I was going to let him get around me. But by the, he was so awesome. He told me to jump in, and he was more than willing to help. His name was Dan. Thanks, Dan. But by the time we got back to the van, there was also a couple that walked up, and they've been out hiking with their fur baby, and that's when the fun began. Remember, there's no cell service out here in the middle of nowhere. No cell service, no signal, no nothing on anybody's phone, not just mine. So I had already tried prying the window down. I'd found like some limbs that were flat and strong and tried that. I had even tried to break it at one point. Thank God that didn't work. The four of us exhausted all ideas and possibilities though, and that's when I made the decision to take that couple up on their offer to ride with them to their house and use the phone to call for a tow or a lockout service. They were and are absolutely wonderful people. Are now among my growing tribe of earth angels and friends. I love you guys. I checked on Nonni one last time before we headed out and made sure she was okay. And then we made a mad dash to their house so Nonni and my van wouldn't be left alone very long. When they realized I was going to have to call my insurance company, they called their own AAA local guy instead. How awesome is that? And he knew, of course, right where it was, and their service promised to expedite the service call as quickly as possible because of Nonni. I tell you, I'm so blessed. And also, I should note that in the meantime, I had checked in with Robert and my Inner Circle tribe while we were there at their house where I had a signal, and I sent them my location and gave them an update. But I got to tell you, already Robert had noted that it had been more than 30 minutes since my Spot GPS tracking had shown movement, and that I wasn't on the main road, that I was off the main road. And so needless to say, he and my Inner Circle tribe were getting worried. So again, thank you, Carls and Leota, for taking me back to your house and let me check in with everybody and for getting help. Anyway, so with all of that done, we took off again, and so I could quickly get back to Nonni, and she was still doing just fine and wasn't even panting. In fact, until we drove up, she had been on the bed sleeping. So then here came the cavalry. So you guys meet Brady. He was my knight in a white truck. He got there in the middle of nowhere, at least 45 miles from the nearest town in about an hour. I mean, that's just unheard of. So, and Nonni was starting to get stressed. Not so much because she was getting hot yet, but because I was outside and she wasn't, and she didn't understand. She clearly wanted out, and she couldn't figure out why I wasn't opening the door. My poor baby girl, it was killing me. But anyway, Brady had to pull out all the stops and tools to get into my van. In a way, that's good to know that it's not that easy to break into, but in this moment, it only added to the stress. He did a great job though, including standing on his toes on a little bitty bucket, but finally he got it open. I didn't think to stop and get a video of that moment because I just wanted to climb in, let Nonni out, and find my keys. We were all so relieved. Tell me what you had to do to open it up.
I had to unlock the door.
that about sums it up. Thank you so much.
He's our hero.
Our hero. After a lot of rejoicing, I followed my new friend back to her house. She shared with me later that it's known as Camp Krylo.
I want to hear a story about Buford, Wyoming.
Yes, please.
Population 1 in Buford, Wyoming. Okay, it was owned by this fellow who was there for years and years and years, and finally he decided he's going to sell it. So he put it up for auction. It was on the internet. Just a public auction. Highest bidder is going to get this whole town, population 1, Buford, Wyoming. So he put it out there on the internet, and the day of the auction was a big deal. The local press all came out. It was a big deal, all exciting. But there were very few bidders, and it was finally won by a guy from Vietnam. His coffee, because he has some coffee plantation in Vietnam. So he is over there, and then eventually hired back, evidently the guy that originally owned it came back to manage the place. And you need to go by there, get your sign, get your picture taken by the sign, Buford, population 1.
I'm gonna do that.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Alrighty.
It was getting late, and Nonni and I were exhausted, and they had offered for me to stay with them for a night if I had wanted to, and I thought about that for a while, and then I realized that I really did want to get to know them better. Plus, I could tell that if I kept pushing it, I was going to potentially put myself at a risk for a TBI episode, and that would not have been a good launch day. And also, it's never a good idea to look for a campsite after dark, and I wasn't sure how much hunting I was going to have to do for a different campsite if the one my friend was sending me to with the coordinates, if it was already taken. The odds are on a holiday weekend, if I'd have gotten there early that day, clearly it would have been better odds, but since it was a holiday weekend and all of that, I decided to camp overnight at Camp Krylo, and I'm so glad I did.
This looks like a lot of potatoes for 3 people, but I hardly ever make them, so Cryo will eat them and be so pleased.
Yay!
Oh, we're putting together some
Sausages and potatoes and eggplant, I think.
And some eggplant.
Sweet. It was an amazing treat, complete with storytelling. In her studio, Lo even has a quote on the wall that I just love. And they are musicians. I have so many friends that are accomplished musicians, and now I can add these guys to the list. Plus, they had a signed poster of a Texas musician on their mantle. I mean, what are the odds? And that link to that musician is in the description. I love, love, love how the road and the universe provides. It's a small world, and it's such a wonderful life. So here is my new friend Lo, my new earth angel, telling this story in her own words.
I'm going to talk about how Deborah saved herself. She lost her keys, misplaced her keys. Her keys left her pocket.
They did. They just left my pocket.
At an inopportune time.
Very inopportune.
And she had wisely placed the van in the best place she could possibly place it. She was at Johnson Reservoir, where she could be easily seen. She got out, and found Dan the cheatgrass man, or he found her actually.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't let him pass me by. He was driving. I flagged him down.
Because there are no, you have to understand, she's in the middle of nowhere. There are no people here. So, as she's driving with Dan the cheatgrass man, she sees us walking at an odd time for our walk and flags us down, and we all get out to figure out how to get the keys out of the van. And more importantly, to get Nonni out of the van.
That was my deal,
I
yeah.
mean, it was like, she'd be fine, but Nonni's in the van. Nonni's fine, there's no panting, she's got water.
And the fans were going.
And the fans were going, so we knew she was safe. But how do we get the keys out? Rock doesn't work. 2 men and 2 women could not get it out, so we took her to our house, and long story short, we got AAA to drive an hour out from Wheatland, and Brady, who's somewhere in this clip, the hero, after a while, several tries, gets the keys out. So I guess the whole point of this is that this is the second person who has put their keys in an unfortunate place that we have rescued. The first was an Army veteran helicopter pilot who did not save himself nearly as cleanly and swiftly and efficiently as Deborah did.
Oh, thank you.
So Deborah gets the award for way to put yourself in the right place if you're going to lose your keys.
See, I can do this.
Because we all benefited. We had a fun night. We had a cookout. We had a fire. We had fun.
We had fun, and now we're great friends.
Yes.
Yes.
So, and bottom line, Nonni just kept looking like, okay, can I come out yet?
Yeah, it's like, why are y'all out there and I'm in here?
Yeah, but it was a celebration when she came out, and Jazz got to play with a friend.
Absolutely.
So we all made friends, and some things are just meant to be.
Great. Thank you so much.
Simple.
So there you go. Life on the road with me solo. We'll see how it goes from here, but actually, I think my maiden voyage, my first day test, didn't turn out too badly. We'll see you down the road, everybody.